In this video, I'm going to be looking at freeform deformations, or FFD, that have been applied to pre-made motions to exaggerate the motion clip so that you get more of that squash and stretch type animation. And I'll be looking at how you can tone that down if it's a little too much for your character, or how you can edit it, or how you can remove it altogether. So let's get started. So for this demonstration, I've set up this gamer dude character in his gaming room. This is a character that I made with Daz AI along with the background. Daz AI is a text to image generator. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link to an article I wrote about it in the video description. Now, I've already animated this character with this torque motion down here, which is an exaggerated FFD torque motion, and I'll just quickly show you the timeline with the character's animation. You can see down here I've got the FFD track open and the motion track open, and you can see on the motion track, my motion clip here, I've done some keyframe work, and that's just to ensure that things like the character's arms don't overtake and overlap his body in a weird way so that this animation looks natural. I'll go back to without the timeline and we'll play this animation just so that you can see what it looks like.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate.
You can see there it's the full torque motion pretty much as is with all its full FFD exaggeration, but just a little bit of modification so that it looks fairly normal. And I've also added in a few eye blinks and stuff as well for the character's face. But say you were happy with that, but you just wanted to change a few things about it. Say you don't like how exaggerated that particular FFD motion is. The way to quickly modify it is to go into the timeline and make sure you've got the FFD track open and select the actual motion anywhere on the clip, doesn't matter. Then you want to right click and bring up the FFD clip intensity option, and you'll see we get this little slider here. 1 is the actual intensity of the motion when you add it to your character. If you go more in this direction to the left, you'll reduce the intensity, and if you go more to the right, you'll increase the intensity. So I'm going to turn off the character's voice so it doesn't get too annoying using this little slider here, and we'll play the animation just so you can see how that goes. You can see if I turn this all the way up and then play the animation, you can see how truly horrible that is with that exaggeration. If we go the other way and go less than 1, and I usually find about 0.5 and lower, somewhere between 0.4 and 0.5, these FFD motions start to become more sort of usable. So if I press play on that, you'll see you still get some of that bounciness of the FFD motion, but it's not nearly as exaggerated. And if you wanted to turn it off altogether, you can drag that to 0. Now when we press play, it's basically just the normal motion. But I actually quite like having a little bit of the FFD still on there. It just gives your animation a little bit more bounce and looks just a touch more natural without being overly exaggerated. So even somewhere around 20-25, it's not so over the top that you wouldn't use it. Try around 70, 75, play on that. So that's getting much more bouncier. But it's a really handy thing to at least know about this FFD intensity and how to access it, because having a little FFD exaggeration on your motion clips can actually make the animation look a little bit more fluid. I'm going to reset this back to 1. And just remember, this always works on the entire clip that you've selected. You can't do just parts of the clip. I've got that reset. If you have no intention of using FFD, you can actually just select the track in the timeline, hit the delete key, and now if I play that, it looks exactly the same as if I turned the intensity to 0. I'm going to undo that. And let's say you really like that exaggerated motion as is, but you'll see just up here, when he sweeps his arm, he really dips down, gets really low going down. You say maybe that's a little bit too much, you don't want him to go quite that low. What you can do is actually keyframe and modify these FFD motions, and to do that you open up the FFD editor. And you'll see now that we've got this open, we've got this blue wireframe, which is the FFD, Freeform Deformation, that works on your entire character, and we've also got the character's bone structure, which isn't quite lining up with the character because the FFD is stretching the character away from its actual bone structure. Now, before I go any further, you'll notice that all of these things across the top here are selected, and that's not supposed to happen. Only one of these is meant to be selected at a time. You'll notice if I click on them, the different presets are showing up, but the tabs at the top aren't changing. I think this is possibly a bug I'm experiencing, but it's not affecting how the program works. It's just this user interface that's not working correctly. But to edit these motions, we want to make sure that this additive box is checked, and I'm going to close down the motion track so that we can just focus on the FFD track here. And I'm going to fix that character from dipping down using a method that I call bracketing, and it goes like this. What we want to do is find the lowest point of where he goes down, and that's the point that I'm going to change. You see I've got the playhead on that point, that side. I would say that's about the lowest point, so we set a key so that we can remember where that is. So that's that keyframe there. Now we go back this way and go to about the start of the motion where he's starting to dip down, about there, and we add a keyframe. What this does is when we adjust this keyframe here, it will only be affecting part of the FFD clip between this keyframe and the one that we change, whereas if I took this one out, this adjustment would be affected between here and this keyframe here, which is not what we want. That's our first bracket, why this is called bracketing. Next we want to do a bracket after the keyframe we're going to adjust. We want to put that just as he stops going up. We start to go down there, and we set another key there. That's our close bracket. So this keyframe is our open bracket. It marks where we're going to change this clip, where the change will start from, and this is where the change will end. If we didn't have this bracket, then this keyframe would go on and keep affecting the motion to basically the end of the clip possibly, but it depends. It's just a good idea to have this bracket here in case you've got other keyframes further up that you don't want this to affect. So now that we've done that, we just go to this keyframe and we're going to select one of these presets, and all I want to do is lift him up a bit so he's not dipping down quite so much, and I just want to lift him up. If we do preserve volume, that would be fine, and we're just going to lift him up so it's going to be this motion here. If you're wondering about preserve volume, all it means is that if we stretch the character upwards, then naturally his sides would get thinner because the character is being stretched upwards, whereas if we did this one and stretched the character upwards, his sides would stay the exact same width. Usually with squash and stretch, you want preserve volume, and all we're going to do is click on this once. You'll see he comes up a bit. I think that's probably about right, and you'll see now it's not ducking down as much. We'll just play that from the start so you can see what that looks like. Turn his volume back on.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate.
And that's how easy it is to just modify the FFD clip if you like most of it, but you just want to change sections of it. That's how you go about it. Another way you could do this, I've undone what I did with the presets, that you can scroll down to the modify section down here, and on the keyframe that we want to modify, we can adjust the intensity with the plus and minus buttons here. If I want this to be less intense ducking down, I can hit the minus button, and that will also lift him up a little bit too. That's two ways you can modify the intensity of just a section of your FFD clip. While we're on freeform deformations for motion clips, something else that often trips me up when I'm using these particular clips is when you actually loop a motion clip. I'll turn his voice off, demonstrate this. Bring back the motion clip, and I'm going to move out my flag here. Now if we go to the end of this motion clip, click that clip and then have loop the motion selected, and we go to loop this motion. You'll notice the FFD clip didn't loop, so that you'll get the end of the FFD clip and then he'll go to his normal speaking without the exaggerated motion. It's just something to be aware of if you're looping your motion clips that have FFD on them. Even clips that aren't FFD clips seem to have an FFD clip attached to them anyway. But if they are actually animating your character, don't forget to actually loop that motion as well. So that you get all the exaggeration on there too. Also, if you do add your own keyframes in like we just did, you can still adjust the intensity of the entire clip, and those changes will be included in the intensity. Play this now.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate.
There we go. That's not too bad. That's my talk clip here with the FFD turned down to 0.25. So that's it for this short demonstration. I hope you found it useful and at least gave you an introduction and a better understanding of freeform deformations, or FFD, that's been applied to pre-made motion clips. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.